Yeah. You said.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
How are you?
I was over here talking to myself.
I do that all the
It's
time.
not unusual for accounting type people.
I do it all day long. How is everybody?
Good, you?
Mary, how are you?
Good, 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 good. Did everybody get their light reading materials?
Yes, we did.
Fantastic.
The forest of materials.
Didn't want to see that sausage being made, trust me. All right.
Okay, think we're ready to go. Call the meeting to order. Yeah, we have a quorum. Thank you.
Yep, quorum.
Let's see, okay. We're gonna skip over the library because it's not actually what we're doing here tonight. And we'll go to fire.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
So I'll jump right in.
Go right ahead.
Jump right in, yep.
Again, good afternoon. Before you in the packet, we'll start right with the beginning. You saw that Deputy and I have built out a 10-year capital plan. What we see the needs are for the Bellingham Fire Department as the community continues to grow, as calls and service continue to grow. This is our projection of reviewing what we have and potentially what we need. It's 2 pages. The first page would be apparatus. The second page would be stations and equipment. So again, and what we do is we would adjust this every year and keep moving it out keep a consistent 10-year plan, 10-year capital plan. The next document in our packet is our basic overview of what we're looking and our needs to replace this year. And we can start right with this. If you want to work that way, or I don't want to get too far ahead of you, folks, tell me how you would like to work it. We can go that way there.
All right, so
Okay, let's start with the, yeah,
the one that we had the emergency meeting on,
Yes, sir.
that's been ordered.
No, we were denied the emergency money. So we
which
now,
wasn't a surprise, right?
we tried. So now we have to go to in November, which is still part of our capital plan, and have to have that vehicle replaced.
And what's the lead time on that?
To be honest with you, anywhere from 12 to 18 months. It truly depends. If we can make, if everything goes well, if we can make the December list from the manufacturer. The manufacturer only makes 4 stock trucks a month. And we really got to be diligent. If we, know that this passes at the November town meeting, I'll be on the phone immediately to see if we make the December list. If not, then it will get pushed off till January. We just have to keep trying to get on the list, and then that dictates the lead time.
Now, Mary, we have the funding for 1 truck, right? We have it listed on your spreadsheet.
We do. Yes. So the plan was that had that emergency request been approved, we would have put together a funding package to pay cash for that vehicle. And so the funding sources that we would be utilizing is the Capital Investment Trust Fund, which has just over $700,000 available in it, and then backfilling that with free cash. The Capital Investment Trust Fund is a fund that we have been appropriating an amount annually with the expectation that it was going to fund the replacement of ambulances or some fire apparatus. So that was the intended use of that particular fund.
All right, so we placed the order in December. You're only gonna have 2 trucks running 2 engines.
We're still
You're taking
running.
1 out of service, right?
We have 1 out of service. We're still running the 1995. It's running first out today, because we don't have, we have engine 1, engine 2. Engine 2 is out for service for its yearly maintenance. It has to have its pump testing done. to meet the standards. It has to have what they call a 1911 inspection, which is the DOT inspection, is where engine 3 failed. It has to have all the brakes, everything has to be up to snuff, to meet the standard. So engine 2 is currently out now being serviced. It went out today, Deputy Correct, this morning, and we're probably at least 2 weeks, out. So we have engine 1 and engine 2. Engine 1's, would be ourselves. Engine 2 and engine 5 would run out of headquarters. And engine 5 is 28 years old.
Now, how come it takes 2 weeks to get this thing tested every year?
Because they have a standard that's governed by the Department of Transportation that we have to follow, and it's a complete checkoff. And the vendor that we bring it to does everything from A to Z, and they'll write everything up, they test everything, and then we get a report back on all safety items that need to be replaced. Engine 1 was out for 2 months, having this inspection done and having the repairs done, 2 months.
Or are they short-handed or they just drag it out? I mean.
It
So
just-
it's-
They're also doing the repairs, so
Repairs.
it's what they find, they have to
Yeah.
do the repairs
Yeah.
on. And, you know, it's a
Alright.
supply chain issue as much as anything else.
Correct.
So the inspection people do the repairs?
Yes,
Correct.
correct. It's one mechanic, it does both. They have to be licensed to do it and certified by, so they do.
I understand that, but usually,
Usually you don't have the guy
that's,
telling you what's wrong.
that's like having a fox guarding the hen house.
So,
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
If you bought a Chevrolet and you brought it back to the Chevy dealer for service, would that be the same thing?
So, because I have a choice, I can walk away.
We don't. See, that's our problem. You only have a certain few mechanics that can do the work. And that's, we're limited to where we can go and who can do what, for what service on the vehicles.
and we're now using a mechanic that is employed by the Foxborough Fire Department. So it's not a case where it's an outside vendor, it is somebody that does fire trucks all the time. They're not looking to make additional work for themselves. So that aligns us pretty well to know that what's getting done to the vehicles is exactly what needs to be done.
But I think it's back to the short-handed part though. In my mind.
I'm sorry.
I said that kind of gets back to the short-handed part. If it's a mechanic for the Foxborough Fire Department.
Mhm.
I guess my question would be, if somebody inspected it and said, X, Y, Z is wrong. Needs to be fixed.
Mhm.
Wouldn't it be faster? Couldn't it be faster? Maybe it's not, but couldn't it be faster to take it to someplace that builds fire trucks and say, fix it?
So we did. We brought engine 1 to Bulldog and it was there for 2 months.
Okay.
So what's the neat thing about Foxborough now is the mechanic, they will only take a truck at a time. So our truck is scheduled until it is completed, and then he'll take another truck in after that. With your larger manufacturers like a Bulldog, an E1, a Pierce dealer, they bring multiple trucks in and they'll work at multiple trucks at a time, with the parts they have or where it stands. With the Foxborough model, they work on 1 truck at a time. No, Foxborough is actually the, right at the fire station. They have a separate bay
that's- yeah,
behind the
yeah.
station that they do all the repairs,
Okay.
yes.
Chief, what's the plan if we have one of our pumpers go down?
Right now?
Yes.
We rely on mutual aid if they're available. Today, if they're available.
Okay.
One of the things that we have to keep in mind is, mutual aid is just that. It's not built for everyday calls, for the community. It is on a large scale incident or multiple calls. As all communities around us are getting busier, the chances of us getting a piece of apparatus from another town is getting slimmer and slimmer. You have to go out that much further, which also adds your response times that much further. So it's a cumulative effect of where it's gonna come from and what it's for.
So right now, our primary engine is from, one of our engines from 1996.
That is correct.
1995.
1995,
1995.
sorry.
I wasn't even in high school yet.
That's running out of the South Station right now.
Right. So,
What's its condition?
Honestly, poor. If you have pictures of it rolling in your packet, it is poor. But we have no choice. We have to keep what apparatus we have right now until we can get it replaced going, to the best of our ability.
Was it last inspected?
It's due next, believe it or not,
When was it last inspected?
last year.
Yes.
It passed, just passed.
How do you feel with that engine responding to calls for the firefighters and for the public?
As long as we keep up with the maintenance on it, I'm comfortable with it. But there will get to be a point, and it is there now, if you follow the National Fire Protection Association standards, that truck should not even be on the road. It is at the end of life. We are continuing to keep that truck on the road because we have no choice at this point.
Basically putting a Band-Aid on the truck.
Yes. And that if, what I could find for documentation from the previous chief, it was slated to be replaced in 2021.
And that's why it wasn't, but it doesn't really matter.
I can't answer that.
So we're getting a Pierce, is that the one you?
That is our plan, yes.
There has not been, so I was there in 2021 and there was not a conversation that there was with urgency to replace that engine. It had never made it to the capital plan.
I figured that. Hey, Mary's, so this whole emergency thing, and we didn't qualify for it, but so out of one, because we're guessing that this is gonna be about 1.1 million, right, for this truck. And we have 750,000.
Yes.
We have a slightly in that capital investment trust fund, we have about 730,000, correct?
Okay.
And we're gonna fund that from free cash in the investment trust.
I'm just, I mean, and I know that town regs and all that stuff and voting and the town meeting and all those different things. At the same time, I'm thinking to myself, there's money that's gonna come out of town meeting, there's no question. And it's gonna be a function of who needs what and absolute need. And right now, I can't think of a more absolute need than this, and pushing it off for whatever extra period, because it seems to me when we had the emergency meeting, we was talking about the fact that if we got it on that, it would have been much faster.
Correct. We were hoping to get on the September list for the manufacturer.
Yeah.
But well, I can't even entertain the
But
conversation with
it's-
them.
But I guess the question in my mind is, it's not a 1-for-1. So it's getting on the December list doesn't mean we just backed it up 3 months. The sense I had was, if you get it on the September list, you get the truck next year. If you don't get it on the September list, then it goes 12 to 18 months out.
That is correct. If we don't make the list, so we can put our name in on the list. But if we don't, if someone is ahead of us, or 2 departments or 3 departments are ahead of us, what pushes us off to January now.
Okay, can I ask you a question? In order to put your name on the list, what is required? Do they require a certified vote of an appropriation, or is it just for you to get in the queue, knowing that there are people ahead of you?
They'll need a letter, Mary, from the town, would be from Beth, saying that they support and will fund the purchase of the truck. They won't, Pierce or any manufacturer, I shouldn't even just say Pierce, any fire truck manufacturer will not do anything unless they have a letter of commitment from a community. And I can't give them like that, so I can't put our name on anything until we have it voted on.
It
So
requires-
I'm sure, well, I'm not sure of anything. I think Mary probably is following where I'm going with this. It's like I got 730,000 out of 1.1 million. Maybe I should ask Beth, what do I have to do to get this? Yes, we're gonna do this kind of thing.
As far, I mean, we'd have to go to town meeting.
Okay. So there's no other way.
There is no other way. The only other, so there's 3 options, Roland, Beth, if I may jump in.
Help yourself.
Okay, so the first option is a town meeting vote. So the use of any funding requires the support and approval of our legislative body, that is town meeting. So when you have town meeting approval to spend funds, then you are able to proceed. There's 2 other options. Number 1 is the statute that we the avenue that we tried to follow, which was to get this declared as an emergency procurement.
Mhm.
And the process by which you do that is that you make an appeal to the Department of the Division of Local Services. There's a statute in Mass General Law that authorizes emergency procurement for what the DLS deems an emergency. typically those emergencies tend to be associated with acts of God and nature. So a tornado, a hurricane, or, you know, something was destroyed because of an act of God. We pursued that avenue because for us, this is an emergency. We have, it's a, you know, it was a threat to public safety. We had multiple conversations. We supplied multiple packets of documentation. I personally spoke with the Division of Local Services on numerous occasions, as did Beth. And we pleaded our case as best we could to get them to see that although they may declare an emergency as something weather related, they've got to understand that communities face emergencies of all sorts at any point in time. And for us, this was an emergency. Ultimately, it is their decision and their decision alone to support that or deny that. And they did deny that because it didn't fit the spirit of the statute. So
What's option 3?
so option 3 is there is an agency called MFOB, the Municipal Finance Oversight Board. And that is an agency that is made up of some state representatives where you can appeal to them and see if they would agree that it is an emergency situation. There is a process that you have to follow for MFOB, and that process is that you have to send a request to them to get included on their next agenda. And at the time that we were having these conversations with DLS, MFOB was not scheduled to have a meeting until the middle of October, and middle to latter part of October. So there was no guarantee that we were going to get on the agenda, and we would have had to wait a month anyway before we were even going to be heard by them. And what MFOB authorizes is they authorize a community to borrow money, not to use funds on hand, but their purpose is to authorize emergency borrowing for an emergency situation. That didn't necessarily make sense either, forcing us to spend additional funds on borrowing costs and the process to borrow when we had funds on hand. So we looked at the timing, we looked at the options in front of us, and because our first emergency request or appeal was denied, we chose to pursue the town meeting option. So there were not any other expedient remedies available to us, Roland, despite the fact that we really wish there were. We wish that there was some flexibility that communities could be able to react and respond to an emergency situation, but that
Well,
just doesn't exist.
It seems like option 3 might have been an option if the meeting had been sooner rather than later. Being in the middle of October where we're gonna have a meeting in early November doesn't make much sense.
Right.
The borrowing thing doesn't bother me because if they give you authorization to borrow, you don't actually have to borrow it until you take the truck. By then, you would have had town meeting and it had the 730 plus whatever from town meeting to pay it off, and you'd have never actually borrowed the money. You just got the authorization to go forward. So it's a gimmick, but
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
boiled down to a timing situation, honestly.
Yep.
Well, and I guess our fourth option would have been, which is not a desirable option, which would be to go through all of the motions to hold a special town meeting just for this one item.
no, that wouldn't make sense at all. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay,
But that's the first truck. Now you want a second truck.
Correct. So that's, you were talking about, the replacement was for engine 3. That's the one that frame rails expanded an inch and a half and didn't pass the DOT inspection and could not be on the road. The second one we're talking about is engine 5. That's the 1995. That's still we're running in service because we have no choice to keep that truck on the road. And that's the one that's in very poor condition. So yes, 2 pumpers. Engine 3 is the one that was taken off the road because it failed inspection. And it was advised by the manufacturer, and engine 5 is the 1995.
Chief, just to clarify from my purpose, on my sheet, I listed engine 5 as number 1 priority and engine 3 as number 2 priority.
Mary,
you're kind of cutting out. We can't quite hear you.
Can't hear you.
I'm sorry. What I had listed on my sheet as the number 1 priority was engine 5. I believe based on what you just said, I have that incorrect. Is engine number 3 the priority to be replaced?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And just how would we go about funding a second one, because we don't have that kind of free cash hanging around. That's gonna take borrowing. What was the funding mechanism gonna be? We taking a
So-
5-year loan or a bond or?
So Joe, to answer your question, that would more than likely end up being a borrowing. However, I have not put together the full financing plan, A, because capital doesn't consider that. And B, I haven't had an opportunity to do so yet. We've just got all of the requests pulled together. So it'll end up being a borrowing, but we'll discuss those terms when we get to finance committee, if that's okay with you.
It's fine.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I guess looking at what we do consider. Since we don't consider money.
Yep.
I understand the desire to replace the 1995. But what if that slipped a year?
You're further that much out rolling, you're probably looking at least, you're gonna have a truck that's 31 years old. Because we're probably now gonna be 2 years out before we, on top of another, so potentially. If the truck goes in for inspection here in another month and it doesn't pass, it has to come off the road as well too. I don't know where it's gonna land, to be very honest. But you potentially could be out of another pumper.
Yeah, the cost goes up $500,000.
Its cost right now, the projection is about 240,000 a year increase. Right now, that's what every manufacturer is projecting. Every year we wait.
And then the command vehicles are 80,000 more a year, correct?
Correct. Ford just did, last year, did a $15,000 increase last year alone on their emergency vehicles.
Did you just say an $80,000 increase on a command vehicle?
No,
The cost.
no, the overall cost we were looking for maybe to replace. is
Okay,
83. Mhm.
not an increase. Okay,
No,
thank you.
no, sorry. So 10%. So yeah, 10%. Yeah, I had based that thing on 12, but they told me.
Great Boston Police Council.
Yeah. Yeah, so 10%.
If we need further, it would just happen.
The chief was advising that he just was notified that the command cars that we're looking are looking at a 10% increase per year moving forward.
That's what the Greater Boston Police Council is allowing on their bid,
Mhm.
10%, and they've been taking that 10% every year. Plymouth Commissioners, I think, allows 8%, they've been taking that 8% on that, and then they've been charging lot fees to, so it's
About 10%.
a racket, but they've been getting their 10% every year.
Are there certain grants that we could apply for to help offset the cost with any of this stuff?
For vehicles, not on the fire side, no. If they do, they're not even guaranteed. There's only one that comes to mind, that's the assistant firefighters grant, but that won't open up until January, Deputy. I think it's January. And then, to be very honest with you, Mike, it's it's a crapshoot. It's really difficult. And I'm gonna go for that grant. The deputy and I have already been talking. We want to try to go for affordable radios because those need to be replaced. So we want to try to prioritize where we're at.
And a lot of that on the grants, especially with the vehicles, they're looking at, they grant them to people, the communities that have one that, are small volunteer fire departments, one vehicle that's, 20 years old and they're replacing it. And it is the primary vehicle for the whole small
Small town
community.
community,
That's
they
what
go
the
for.
grant really, those with vehicles, that's usually what they're looking at. The western part of the state.
Then the next engine you're looking to replace is gonna be in 2029.
2029. Next engine, fiscal year 20, yes, so calendar year 2028, that is correct. That would be the 2014. That would be the current engine one. And again, that would put you in the 15-year range. You look at year or two to replacement, so you're right at your 17, 18-year range. That's what we're trying to project out.
Do the NAFTA regulations change very often?
I'm sorry, Roland.
The
NFPA every 5 years.
So do they change substantially with regards to the equipment?
They do. The trucks today are going a lot more electronics, which we do not care for, but we don't have a say in the matter. Mechanical is better, but the standards people are a lot higher than us that do a lot more studying, feel that, electronic pieces, safety equipment, the cancer, clean cabs, all this stuff is coming into effect. So every 5 years, the committees are constantly evaluating, and then every 5 years, the new standard comes out. So when you purchase the truck, it is built on the latest, newest standard.
All right, so basically the funding we'll probably won't have to borrow till fiscal 25, right, Mary?
Probably, that's correct.
Even though we approve it in November, we're talking 25, maybe even to 26, depending on the lead time.
Don't ask me what the rates are gonna be like then, Joe.
I think they'll start coming down next year.
We hope.
So when does engine 5 actually go in for inspection?
It is due, so engine 2 is in now. When engine 2 comes back, we're speculating it's gonna be out about 2 weeks. Engine 5 will go in after for its DOT inspection, pump testing, service, which would do all the fluids, check the rear end fluids, transmissions, everything.
So when engine 2 comes back, we'll schedule engine 5 to go in.
That's the 1995, right?
That's correct. So we're probably looking October sometime.
I'm just looking at this because it's having 2 engines at the same time is late. It's gonna be a huge crush. It just is. And we got ambulances that are gonna go next year. Right?
Yes.
Well,
Okay. So, I don't know.
we may have to put, instead of getting 2 ambulances, we may have to go down to 1 and put the other one off the following years. Because you should be getting 8 years on your ambulance, right?
Nope. No
Why
more.
not?
5 years. The call volume has gone up. The ambulances are running right now. A2, which is our newest ambulance, has almost 40,000 miles on it, and it's a little under 2 years old. Actually, right around 2 years old.
Actually, that's your older one. That was, you bought that one.
A1 is, right,
Yeah,
A1 is,
sorry, yes, yeah.
A1.
Yeah, A1.
A1 has got 40,000 miles on it.
A1 has,
Well, this, it's got 9,100 miles.
yeah, so this one,
A1.
we did this, so A1 is the newest one.
Right.
A2 is the one we would replace.
A2's got, right, it's the one we'd be looking to replace. That's got over 40,000. This was done a month ago. So we're looking at 40,000, so.
A2 is a 2020
Yes,
and A3 is a 2014.
correct. So we replace that would go to A2 would then become the spare. It would drop down. That is our backup ambulance. We replace A2 as the primary, put A2 as the spare, get rid of A3. That would go out as a trade-in.
So why are you showing 2 of them being replaced in the same year?
That's my issue. I would be.
So
Issue. It would be just one.
just the one.
This one.
This one.
Yep, this one.
Yeah.
No, that's my fault.
Okay.
Which one? A2
So
or A3?
A3.
technically it's A3, but A2 becomes the primary.
Correct.
You're replacing A3.
Yeah,
And they two moved into the.
into the,
Into A3.
yeah.
Yes, that is correct.
Hey, that's,
My apologies.
well, not a problem. You're scheduled this year to do, well, the two cars you're replacing, is that this fiscal year or next fiscal year?
This,
That's fiscal 25, yeah.
right,
They're in
That's
that,
gonna
they're
be
in
next
this, they're in this capital,
they're in this gap.
what we're gonna talk about today. So as you can see, we're looking to replace both car 3 and car 4, which are inspector cars, have been in and down. They have very high mileage, very high engine hours. Again, in your packet, there's a whole series of pictures of your frames, bodies, undercarriage. They are deteriorating. These vehicles are used for inspections as well as emergency response vehicles. So again, mileage wise and engine hour wise, mechanically, they're close, as well as if you look at the frame rails and the undercarriages, close to end of life as well. Too. I believe, Mary, you sent those, I believe, in an attachment, correct?
I did. They didn't print out very well, so I emailed them out to everybody.
Yeah, I got,
Thank you.
You guys gotta do better preventive maintenance on washing your undercarriages.
We're doing the best we can do. We're actually looking now, we did them with the ambulances to oil coat them yearly. So that's one of the processes we're looking in. Both A1 and A2 are we need to get those scheduled to go in and be oil
Yeah,
coated.
so every time the new ambulances had the undercoating done, the oil coating. When we purchase them, they'll be done before this winter. We'll also probably schedule the newest car to be done as well.
Anytime down a DPW garage, you use their undercarriage washer.
They don't have an undercarriage.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
At the DPW?
Yeah, for the trucks. Should be able to get the ambulances under there.
And this, we're not even talking about the ambulances right now, we're talking about cars.
Cars,
Yeah,
Which,
so we,
I'm driving a 2018, and by the way, I have 126,000 minutes. So,
and
when I look at this one, and I look at mine, my undercarriage is great, you know why? Because I take it to the car wash.
but it's not.
But we can't run ours to the car wash, so we have.
It's not just the undercarriage, these command vehicles, yeah, the NFPA standards, you have carpet in them. And they're not adequate for incident command, so if they want to see an
Well, this-
emergency, you know, the chief, the officer on duty. You know, is responsible for the men, and that's, you know, accountability, equipment, you know, calling mutual aid. And the vehicles are not adequate for it, and especially with vehicles with carpet in them. And you have turnout gear and mud and slush and everything else, I think that's what the chief, you know, with the
I
chief.
hope
That
that's
is
not
part of
the
it.
case.
No, that's part of it,
And
but it's
then-
not the only.
so one of the other things, your vehicle. Probably doesn't sit for 3 hours on a scene idling with the lights going as running out of it. You go to somewhere, you shut it off, you go in. So the mileage is one thing, but there's these hours of runtime.
So,
That adds-
so what's your repair record?
I thought we pulled that, you know. If I don't have it, I can get that to you. I only pulled the engines, engine 3, engine 5, I did not pull the 2 cars.
I'd like to see the repair record. I don't have an issue with buying what we have to buy,
Right.
right? But when I see a vehicle of this age, and I know that these are not the cars of 20 years ago. They don't rot as easy as they used to, because the bodies, the chassis, everything is made a little bit better. And so it's bothersome to me a little bit when I look at this, and I understand the idling thing.
Yeah.
Because you'd be surprised how much my car does idle on a job. Not as much as yours. I won't even pretend that. But with this kind of mileage, you'd have to have incredible idle times. And that's why I want to see the repair records, because if the repair records are for tires and brakes, that's not anything to do with idling. So unless you're changing engines.
No, and we're not looking to change engines.
Right.
I'm just
If we
making.
got to that point, it was be taken out of service.
Wasn't that problem you were talking about a couple weeks ago where it's the engine, you know, the vehicles have, you know, the mileage, but then.
Yeah,
in your package.
yeah, it's in your package.
Okay.
The idle hours, yep, for the larger apparatus, it's idle time times 60. Which, give me one second, I don't want to give you, yeah, so it's engine hours times 60 gives you true engine hours.
Right.
Slash mileage, I'm sorry, mileage, gives you true mileage. And the same thing, it's the same factor for a vehicle as well too. If you look at the language, you know, just take obviously the car three, the 2015, it's got 71,000 miles, it's got 4,265 engine hours. If you do that out, it equates out to 127,950 miles. But again, these are emergency response vehicles as well as the frames. If you look at the frames in your packets, those are the frames and undercarriages.
And all of these used to just go to Blue Magic, correct? All of these, no?
No.
Okay, because I thought that's what the chief used to repair the vehicles was the Blue.
Barrett's.
That's okay.
Barrett's, when Barrett was in business, a lot of the vehicles. The DPW did a lot of service on our cars. So they did our standard oil changes, brakes, go through everything. So they were the ones under the vehicle, cleaning them, making sure that everything was in good shape, and trying to keep up with them.
One of the reasons why we're bringing this up is because we just had the same kind of discussion with the DPW.
Mhm.
Right, and they're implementing a different maintenance protocol with regards to, because believe it or not, their vehicles are probably subject to even more than you guys are, because they're plowing snow most of the time.
Correct.
And so we cited that and they're gonna be doing a lot more in terms of the underbody cleaning with the apparatus that they have, just to avoid the fact that we don't want frames to be breaking. That's replacing a vehicle because of that is like, that's because you didn't take care of it. And I'm not blaming you guys, but that's from the long perspective, when we look at this stuff, you're right. None of this stuff is going down in price.
Right.
So if we can get more years out of it in a suitable condition, then we're all happier. And
You're gonna find that that's part of the issue with some of our stations, the two outlying stations. You can't wash vehicles there in the winter, so it makes it more difficult. Because there's no floor drains in them. One was built in the 1700s. It's not made for that. The headquarters does have the ability to wash vehicles there, but that means bringing the vehicles from the other station up to wash them and then get them back. And then they drive back on those same roads. So it has to come to to headquarters to be washed in the winter time.
Of course, still business, you guys are on duty.
Yeah.
I know, but you're not covering the side of the town that you
Oh,
want to
you have
cover.
to send the other one down south, that's all. I mean, Jesus, come on.
okay, anyway, I agree, by the way, but like that shouldn't be the impediment.
Well,
It
it
really
doesn't
should.
help if you're looking at washing the vehicles, that's one impediment on washing vehicles in that part of town. For those.
Oh, and I agree, in that part of town. but
Correct.
Precludes you guys from sending one down south and the other one up north, so you can wash it once in a while. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
You guys are on duty, they're working 24 hours, so if the guys from station one gotta go down to station two for 2 hours, while the guys from station one wash their car, it's not a big deal in my mind.
So the long and short of it is you ought to be thinking about some kind of maintenance program. I know that you have the standard inspections and all that stuff, but just the routine maintenance stuff also helps, I think. So I think maybe you start thinking in those terms, and we're trying to get the DPW not only to do it with theirs, but to make their stuff available. So, sure, washing it in your garage may work or may not work. Maybe it's better if we just centrally locate where the washings are gonna be, especially with the DPW, gonna move a lot of this stuff to a new location. Yeah. Okay. All right. So we're replacing 2 cars. Great.
Well, that should actually be in,
So Chief, on those cars, do you have quotes?
I do. We handed them out. I apologize, we did not put it in the packet, but everyone, we did hand them out tonight.
Okay. Tomorrow, could somebody just scan that into me?
Absolutely.
what we
Thanks.
get is for a pickup truck,
Yes, that's correct.
so you're replacing the Tahoes with pickup
That
trucks.
is correct. A lesser of a vehicle, firefighter friendly. It doesn't have the same amenities that we have now, but we're fine with that because we would use them as true command vehicles. So
If you
And we-
have copies of the quotes.
they all have them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can scan it.
You'll scan it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
That's not bad, it's the price of the equipment you put in it, that tells you. What is, equipment bed say? $6,000.
So that is a tray that goes in the back that we would mount our equipment to, your command board,
That's why I-
radios, and it slides out, so everything. Our vehicles are basically our mobile offices. So on incidents that we respond to, we would set up and work out of our cars.
Seems like it's all, got $6,000 for a rack to roll out.
We'll make the prices.
No, it's not, it's roughly the same amount as the boxes that go in the back of the Tahoes. So,
Actually, the boxes are more.
yeah, so it's generally about the same price as outfitting a Tahoe.
$100 for running board lights.
The running board lights are actually the alley lights as opposed to like. The old days where they were on the bars.
Yeah.
Now that they put them down low, so they light up white as well as they strobe red during your response to give you that side intersection lighting.
I'm assuming that this is all mandated by somebody.
And if PA standards again, yes,
But
Is it a recommendation or is it a requirement?
the recommendation,
It's not a requirement.
It's an industry standard.
industry standard, exactly.
It's not a requirement.
No. It may actually cost more to remove it under the package.
It does, I can be honest with you, I asked to take some stuff off and it
Yeah.
will cost more.
The
Because the
package
vehicles are
comes in-
built as a package.
So these are for Fords,
Correct.
Colonial Group.
Yes, you're on the state business.
In comparison to, equipment group. In the greater Boston group, which group is this in?
That's Plymouth.
Plymouth.
Yeah.
What's the delivery time on this?
Could be 6 months, could be a year with the strike that just happened. I can't give you an honest answer because I don't even know if they're built yet. Chief, do you know if they're even built? I don't think they are.
So we're in the same boat. We're gonna talk about vehicles, let's talk about vehicles real quick, the Colonial. And I would advocate for buying off the Greater Boston because it will hopefully lower our membership dues, but that's another story for another time, it's only 1%. Ford, right, the Colonial, and this all went to. We're in a public meeting, so imagine the word I wanna use. 2020, prior to 2020, when I was buying vehicles in Foxborough, I could call, we dealt with MHQ or Colonial, whoever. Hey, I need 4 cruisers this year, what do you have? Oh, I got 2 blue ones, 2 white ones. We need 4 blue ones. Okay, I'll get 2 more blue ones. Give me a month and they're there. Now, they don't get the same allocations they used to have. So instead of them buying 400 or 600 Explorers and 100 pickup trucks and 100 Tahoes, they get a much more narrow allocation. They're requiring customers to sign something saying, I swear, I promise I'm gonna buy this. And go build it. Then Ford or Chevy will release to them more. But the problem is, the 2023 ordering window is now closed.
Correct.
24, they're long closed, they're not building 23, it's 24, the ordering windows were open in June, July, and August, those are closed. So now we're relying on allocations that the manufacturers gave these individual dealers that are relying on a promissory letter. But these allocations may not get built now, because now you have the strike, et cetera. So they basically have nothing on the lot that's actually for sale right now that's not already spoken for. So we're kind of in this horrible nether region of, hey, we need some vehicles, what do you have? Well, we have nothing. Okay, what can you get? Well, we don't know. Here's what we have on the lot that people said they wanted. If someone backs out, this could come available. They supposedly have 12 more responder pickups that Ford will send them, but they were 2023s. Ford's done with 23. So unless if Ford released those 12 to them a month or so ago, they might not be coming. So it's it's an absolute nightmare being a fleet manager. I've been living this for about 6 years, and it's just, it gets worse every year, and you have to play these games, and I mean, when we get to us, we're looking for 2 vehicles, because we try to do 2 a year. We have our name on about 7 vehicles out there, none actually exist. Of those 7, maybe 1 might actually land here. The other one, we'll be kicking this down the road next spring sometime, hoping somebody pops because, okay, we ordered, there is an extra, it's a terrible situation. So the reality of when a Ford Responder pickup truck will come up, these things are either gonna show up in the next 4 to 6 weeks, or they're not coming. And try again for 2024. And I just heard yesterday that they're not building any police utilities. That's the Ford Explorer and with the rubber floors, police car. Now they're saying they're not building those next year. They threaten something different every couple of weeks. We're not building this. There's not enough money. We're not building that. So this week's answer is we're not building the Ford Explorer police vehicle next year. And the F-150 Responder, we might not build that because we want to focus on the Platinums and the Lariats with suede seats that sell for $90,000. So the question of when this stuff will come is, there's not even an answer. It's a hope. And the hope is that we don't roll past 7/1/24, because then we're looking at a 10% increase. So then the 42,000 or 41,000 or 40, I'll tell you what, when they started making the Responder F-150, it was $33,000 in 2020. It's now up to it's gone up $10,000 in 3 years. So you see, they're taking full advantage of their 10% price increase every year. The Ford utility in 2020, a gas Ford utility, was 30,000 even base price of the car. That same car is just about 40 now. So we know what happens in July, tack $4,000 more onto the price of that car if they even build it. So we're in a bizarre situation with the smaller vehicles. Never mind the fire trucks, it's its own thing, but the cars, pickup trucks, SUVs for us, fleet purchasing is kind of a nightmare because there's not an off the lot option. And the off the lot options, there are, but if he wants an F-150 off the lot, they're gonna take about a 1% discount off the $60,000 sticker price. So now it's a $59,000 truck that should be $42,000 for us. So that's kind of the big overview picture of where we're at. I am told McGovern Ford, which just bought MHQ, you may remember MHQ from years ago. So it's Clay Chase, McGovern, he just bought MHQ. I'm told McGovern is sitting on a large surplus of vehicles, including some F-150 trucks. They're on the state bid list. But if you don't let them install the emergency equipment, they charge you an off the lot fee, which I would suggest is illegal under their agreement with GBPC and all the other group purchasing, because they're adding to the price, but they're charging a $2,500 fee for the privilege of getting something that's sitting on their lot. So that's another.
They charge you for the transfer fee and what not transfer.
Right. And unless you use their people to install the equipment, but there are other people who do a much nicer job with equipment on higher end vehicles like this that need to last 6, 8, 10 years. Then, so it's a nightmare's not the word, but it's a big headache and it's a chess game to land vehicles, especially for a smaller agency. What happened? The quick aside is we stopped doing business with one of the vendors on a public meeting. I won't say when I worked in Foxborough because they service the state police also. State police buy a blue Ford LK blue vehicle to start with because that's easy to paint in their colors. We were waiting for 2 of our 4 that never came, but they had VIN numbers. We checked the VIN numbers in the system, 470 Worcester Road, Framingham, Commonwealth of Massachusetts. That vendor gave our vehicles to a bigger customer. We're small customers buying 2, 4 small vehicles.
And that's why you have the purchasing group.
That's it, but within the purchasing group, the environmental police are getting 24 F-150s. Boston's getting 250 cars, state gets 3. So they're all in the purchasing group too, and they come in and say, we're gonna spend $2 million with you, they're gonna spend 80,000.
Thanks.
I can go on about this all day. It's horrible, it's horrible.
So I do have, so the vehicles we're replacing are the inspection vehicles?
Our 2 command cars will get moved down to inspections. We would build the 2 new command cars.
So
You're technically replacing a 2015 or 2017.
I understand. My question is if they're not command, if we don't need command vehicles, then a lot of this stuff goes away. Well, because I don't need I don't need everything that I need on this, right?
All four vehicles are outfitted the same.
Same,
Why?
Because
if the deputy or I are not available, the captain or lieutenant in fire prevention will be in charge of the incident in our absence. So they have to operate the same way that we do with the same tools and technology. You have to have an incident commander, somebody has to be in charge of the incident.
so there, I mean,
I guess
right,
my question would be, why wouldn't your vehicle be available?
because we're on another call, or we're not available, we're not in town, we could
We
be
have
anywhere.
meetings, graduations.
Yeah, so everybody, that's why the 4 command vehicles is what it takes to cover what we do. We did 19 calls yesterday. 3 of them were multiple at the same time. Which
We're
meant
all out.
so it meant you had 3 individuals in different locations.
So car 1 and car 2 are gonna become car 3 and car 4. In other
That's
words,
correct.
Car 1, car 2,
That is
with
correct.
the new equipment that
Yes.
is recommended by the NFPA.
Separation of their equipment
Equipment.
from the passenger compartments.
And what would happen to the 2 existing inspection vehicles? Would they be traded in? Would they be declared surplus or would they be repurposed?
Our recommendation would either be see if we could, they could be repurposed or go out for surplus, Mary. Vendors do not like to take them back because they are tired vehicles. There's not a market for them.
We also have married different departments like Doug and.
That's what I'm getting.
We could scarf it.
He's auctioning them off, make good money.
I don't know what the market is for that. We want to guess.
I was getting $5,000 on a car that I paid $19,000 for. After severe use, 100,000 miles. I think that secondhand market is still out there. Anybody would buy a car that's a 4-wheel drive vehicle that's got 80,000 miles on it. To them, that's just the beginning of its life.
Joe, like I was telling you, a lot of times our departments use them and run them to the ground. So it's not as rough driving and riding on the engine.
They don't have the idle time and response times.
Right.
The next we're looking at is to replace the windows at Station 1. The current windows at Station 1 are 32, the 32 windows that were put in 1992. They're over 31 years old. The windows are again deteriorating. They're very cold in the winter. The wind just blows right through them. As also as part of this replacement, we'd be looking to insulate around all the windows and the open spaces and start to close up the envelope and make the building more energy efficient. Since we put the new boiler in last year, the boiler is working twice as hard right now just to keep the building warm. In the winter.
Station 1 is.
South Station.
Under the Mass Save grant program, is the money available for this? If you're improving your,
I don't know if we qualify for Mass Save. I thought Mass Save was just residential. I don't know if it qualifies.
Maybe Mass Save. Do we qualify for that?
Are you asking me? I'm sorry.
Mary, that's for the Mass Save grant. Is that for municipalities or for residents?
I have no idea.
Which
probably
one
look
is it?
into that.
Yeah, I know we did some lighting through the state at one point. Lighting was about the only thing that we recovered when we did the actual renovations to the building.
You're gonna improve your heat needs. Falling into the,
Okay,
So we could look into that, but
yeah, I mean, let's look into it.
Yeah.
I understand you need it, but let's see if we can find a way to save some money too.
Well, Chief, last year you were putting plastic over the windows, correct?
That's
tried.
We tried.
it didn't work.
Didn't work. It
No,
blew out.
yeah, it actually blew it up like a balloon and popped it off the window. That's how bad the air leak is in those windows. So,
You'll believe that, right?
what's that?
Most of the time when plastic blows up, it's because there's a heat shield that's been created between the existing window and the plastic.
No, it was actually the wind
Blowing from the
blowing
outside.
through, and it blows the curtains almost out. You can watch the curtains blow. It just blew air in there.
Do you have plastic on the outside?
Inside.
So how do we come up with
The
150?
wind was blowing through and it actually,
That's okay, that's fine.
How do we
So-
come up with $150,000 for 32 windows? That's,
It's not, you have to pay prevailing
that's
wage,
almost $5,000 a window.
it's the windows and the insulation.
inflation, and the prevailing wage, because it would be a state job.
You're insulating around the windows, right?
And below the windows, the sill area and the front wall.
Okay, so. This. How are we getting to this?
I'm sorry, Walter.
And you're new, so, you know, but the problem I have with this is that we're piecemealing this building to death.
Agreed.
And it kind of drives me crazy. All right, because years ago, when you guys, whoever, I don't even know if we were here, but when you were gonna put the, you know, the living quarters upstairs, and, well, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do that, and everything, and I said, okay. So who's checking on this stuff with regards to fire stops and all these different things, and I got a glazed look from a fire chief. And I thought to myself, holy crap. So I said, you gotta go hire somebody, because you know what, we're not gonna do this craziness. So now my question is have we had somebody look at this building to say, these are the things we should do? Or how did we get to this?
I think that's just not part of the presentation.
So I think one of the things that we did was they built the building, they did the renovations, they moved the people upstairs. And as we've gone along, things have happened with that building that we found that we weren't aware of. So the previous administration had a specific amount of money. They used what they had and that was it. And now it's come to where the old furnace, the radiators used to be in, I don't know if you know, they were steam radiators, so
Well
they
aware.
Huh?
I'm well aware.
okay, so they were steam
I
radiators
come
on
from
that
that
wall.
little town. I used to have my Boy Scout meeting.
So great, so you know there's that ledge.
I
and
got
it's the
firemanship
steam
merit
radiators.
badge in that building.
Then what happened was the new heating system, they discontinued that boiler. So that boiler no longer works.
I understand.
Now the air comes from above. All that steam and heat that was on the wall is no longer there. Air is just blowing through those where the radiators used to be. Or where they're still there, but there's nothing warming that wall. And so a lot of that air got warmed coming through and that boiler just ran all the time.
So what's next after the windows?
Roland, that's one of the things Tim is looking at, because he's doing the building maintenance now. So he's checking like the windows to see what needs to be done next. The roof, I think he got 60,000 last year. I think, go hold into it, to look at the roof, because it depends on what's underneath, whether
Mhm.
the wood is bad or whatever.
Yes.
So I know that he is looking at the various buildings, and we'll be probably going to before you with that information. So we now have someone to do that. We didn't before.
So Roland, to your point, I think the next item on the capital list would sort of dovetails or segues right into your conversation, which is that the chief can probably speak to it, is a design and feasibility study with respect to the stations, sort of where we are with them and what the future looks like. And I would expect that that would also involve the condition of the building.
Mary, you summed it up great, thank you, but yes, that's exactly the next capital item that we're looking at, number 6. That's exactly what that is for, to evaluate all 3 of the stations, to see what is needed, what are the next plans, to start working with an outside company to see what the future is, future growth. I don't want to shock anybody, but they may say to us, yeah, don't put money into the South Station, it's not worth it anymore, look for a new piece of land. I don't know, I'm speaking out of school. But this is what we're looking to do with an outside vendor. We're looking to do it with a specialist, somebody who knows this, that can evaluate the buildings and come in and say, this is your priorities, this is what needs to be done.
Station 3.
Up in North Bellingham.
North
State,
Bellingham.
North Bellingham.
But it's-
It's small, it's a small community.
Yeah, it's the
center.
community center, and then the town carpenter used to be the call fire station, but what's the name for Station 3?
It's coverage on the north side.
Okay.
Because of response times.
And what's the response now?
The preliminary data we have right now is if you come from south to north, which is sometimes is on an average, is 16+ minutes.
16 minutes from
16
the south station to
The north.
On the west side.
North side of town.
16. And so that's, basically if somebody's having a heart attack, we rely on the police department, basically.
And not to their defense, if they're not busy either, sometimes
Right.
we're both busy, that's a long response.
And there's mutual aid, but that's Medway is.
If I may, there's one thing, yeah, 150,000 and 300,000 is not scheduled for this year on the sheets. It's scheduled for future years.
It's or the one we put together, Roland?
I'm talking about the one that we prepared for the 10-year capital plan.
Yes, it's on the second page.
It's on the second page.
Mhm.
It says future years.
FY 25.
Yeah, therefore, it says FY 24 November. You're looking for the 2 engines and you're looking for,
I think Mary's looking.
which,
I'm not.
Joe, are you trying to marry up the
Yeah.
two sheets from the chief to the long set of
Yeah.
schedules in your, okay. So there are more items on the chief's 10-year plan than have been included in here. And I just made myself a note to marry the two of those up.
okay,
I only included items on here for which I received a cover sheet.
okay,
So we can put those placeholders in there, okay?
all right.
How do we get the 300,000?
We spoke with the person who's doing our station / staffing study right now, and he said 100,000 is the going for evaluation per station. It may come in less, but it would be no more. And that would include, again, looking at all 3 buildings, what do we need to do, breaking them down, and building a plan future, so we will come back.
Yeah.
That would obviously have to go out to bid.
Right, exactly, Mary, yes,
Who's doing the studies that you were just?
a group called Criterion. I use them in my other job.
What's the issue with headquarters?
I'm sorry,
What's the issue with fire headquarters?
right now, the building is 30, I think it'll be 30 years old. It needs severe renovations on the inside. We're basically just holding it together. We've outgrown it. The bathrooms, the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, the day room, it's a little of everything. It's an accumulation of all pieces. And again, if anybody wants to come and visit, please, our doors are always open. We'll gladly walk through all 3 stations and show.
Nothing.
I don't know, we built our public safety building in Rentham, it was a 50-year building. This building was only built 32 years ago, I don't know why it's falling apart.
I can answer that probably.
Yeah, sure, go ahead, give it a
You
shot.
have different materials at different times. When was the Rentham station built?
2004. And the old station we live in was built in 51.
So did they do any renovations?
And it was condemned because of the air quality, that's why we built a new station.
Did they do any renovations over the years?
No,
One of the other things that is creating a small problem is, again, that building, when it was designed and built with 2 firefighters on duty with station coverage of up to 6. We now have 6 firefighters on duty. So it is a place that has 1 bathroom for females, 1 for males downstairs, with roughly 8 to 10 firefighters working. It wasn't designed for that and hasn't been upgraded. It is something we looked at previous, in the last couple of years. Beth, myself, Tim have gone through and looked at doing some renovations that would assist in even going through with, how stations are supposed to be now with individual, sleeping quarters. Right now it's bunk style. And, so we had looked into that prior to Chief Miller starting. This is a process that we've looked at, and in order to get architectural plans or to have somebody come in and do a design, it needs to go through a company that'll do the design to get it ready for a set of plans, because it would incorporate plumbing, electrical, and that set of design plans would be part of what we need to do.
Station.
Can I make a suggestion on,
I can't tell you.
Yeah,
so if I might make a suggestion in terms of the design study issue. If the committee is interested, I would recommend that we take a field trip and go take a look at the buildings. But in terms of funding, I think this is a perfect opportunity for the town to press Rep. Soder for an earmark in the next state budget cycle
Mhm.
to fund the feasibility and design study.
Okay.
And let's see what can be delivered from that avenue.
Yeah, Mary, would you mind sending me an email, just telling me what I need to do? This is
You just
all-
need to ask him to get money out of the state budget.
I have no problem doing that.
Called earmark.
Earmark, okay. But Chief, what I was alluding to, I thought you said the station was built for California.
the design is, it's considered a California or Florida, a light duty build. When they built it, it was one of the first ones of its type in our area. It's probably one of the last ones of our style, and if you come and you take a tour of the station, you'll see some of the window heights are 18 inches from the ground in the sleeping quarters. So if you have 20 inches of snow, the snow is now up over the windows. You have to show. We shovel out the windows in the winter so the water doesn't leak in. The design of the station has a lot of flaws, and we've worked with that. Recently, we just sealed the block, painted the exterior roof, and we're doing some painting on the inside to try and keep up with, the maintenance of the building.
You actually go in the engine bay. I know it was repainted, but when I went there, it wasn't painted yet, and the walls were actually black. And the firefighters pulled the gear aside, because you have the gear rack, it was pure white behind the gear rack.
Wait, don't you have the ventilation?
So we do now have the ventilation, which is why it's gonna be, repainting it and cleaning it and keeping it up. We now have that. It hadn't been painted since that was in place.
What's the name of that system?
Final event? Yes.
I mean, I remember my grandfather being on the building committee and walking with the building when it was brand new. My grandfather has been gone since 1991.
Okay, are we ready to take any votes on any of these?
Yeah.
Or do you want to mull them over and do it next week? What's the process?
I guess I'll entertain a motion if there is one.
What do you need us to make a motion on, Mary?
2
Well,
fire
it's-
trucks, 2 cars.
It's the committee's, yeah.
Okay, oh, okay, I didn't,
What's the total on that, Mary? Just for giggles and grins.
Oh, I don't know. Hang on. Yeah, well, is the quote that the chief handed out 85,000? My record showed 83. I don't know what you handed out.
83, Mary,
80, was it the 83,735?
yes.
So it's roughly $2.6 million.
Sorry, guys, from the police department, there's no funny figures.
Yeah.
2,367.
You say that again, Mary?
$2,367,470. 2,367,470.
One of the things that could change that slightly is if the 1995 goes up.
I'm not including, I should qualify that. I did not include the design request, the 300,000. I'm just including 4 vehicles in that number.
4 vehicles? Oh, 2 trucks and 2.
Two trucks
cars.
and two,
And what'd you come up with for a number?
2.36.
Yeah, okay, that's why I had. 6 million.
I'm sorry, when you started to ask a question with engine 5, I
I was
apologize.
gonna say, I was gonna say the thing that could change that slightly is if, the 1995 goes on inspection. It doesn't do badly, it won't do perfectly, nothing does. But if it didn't do badly, then you might be able to shift 1.1 million into another year. Possibly.
I would probably recommend that, being a member of the finance committee.
But that may, and then of course, if it does come back good, that does shift it one more year and it makes it, well, it's not the newest vehicle, and when you do that,
I understand that. but
it,
that's a
it adds another year and more money, as well as the chance that could fail in that following year, when we're a year further behind.
I understand that, but there's only so much money that we have.
Totally understand, we're just trying to put all the facts out there.
Right, Good luck selling that.
Trying to be responsible, that's all.
I think we're all trying to be.
That's our problem, you know, it's a new room sweeps clean, chief, but, you know, sometimes you gotta leave a little dust in the corner.
Yeah, I think though, when it comes to public safety, I think kind of all bets are off. I mean, that's just my personal feeling, and I know I'm new, and I know I don't know a teardrop of any information with this. But I think, you know, my feeling is when it comes to public safety between, you know, we get the two main bodies of, two of the three main bodies of public safety in front of us.
Well, you see the DPW.
You haven't heard all of the requests yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We see the school
Take them
request.
one at a time and say.
Yeah.
No, that's what we're doing now. But I mean, I can say, you know, firsthand, I mean, I grew up in the fire service.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of conversations with both Chief Miller and Chief Milo, and I think that these requests are reasonable. And I think if, you know, like I said, if we just put it off, again, we're putting a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound, because these are needed, this is needed apparatus, not just for the safety of the public, the safety of the firefighters, you know, because if they're, you know, the equipment malfunctions, you know, and a firefighter gets hurt, or God forbid, you know, seriously hurt, you know, it's not gonna look good for the town.
So how many trucks do we have?
We know, how many trucks we have? Are we looking like helpers, ladders? What do you?
Yeah, everything.
Yep, so we have, right now, we have 3 engines and 1 tower and 2 ambulances. We
Are
have
there
one,
any of them that are in perfect condition?
no,
Let's renew them all.
I'm not saying that. I'd love to, I'm sure the chief wouldn't mind. but yeah.
I wouldn't ask, no, honestly, I wouldn't ask that, seriously, I'm not
I
that
was
type of
being
person.
facetious.
I know you were, I'm not, but I'm being honest with you.
The point
We
is.
get you on a record with that.
I know, but I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, so. We're not horribly bad. We've got a truck that's down right now, and we gotta bring that back in.
Right,
And when it comes back in, it's gonna be in good condition. And so we're gonna have 2 of them that are gonna be in good condition, and one of them, not so great,
right,
but not bad. And if that gets inspected and it's not bad, all I'm saying is maybe you delay one for a year. And get that started. And I also, I didn't grow up in the fire safety, all right? But I'm not oblivious to safety of any kind. I deal in highways and bridges and all kinds of things every day of my life.
Oh.
So, you know what?
Yeah.
Safety is a big deal for me.
Oh, yeah,
So is prudent financial planning.
So just so you're aware, if engine 3 would have been fine, it was not the vehicle we planned on replacing.
Yep.
no,
So engine 5 was definitely the vehicle we have
I
been
understand.
looking to replace, because we've been looking to replace it for years.
I
And
understand.
so it has been failing over the years. The other one jumped in front of it only from the fact it failed.
I
So
understand, and that's why when I said what I said, I didn't say, well, if it comes back and we can get it so that it's good, right, because it's not gonna be perfect. I didn't say, oh, let's push it out for 5 years. It's
Right.
maybe we just push it 1 year. You know, because then we're just breaking it up a little bit. First of all, when I look at vehicles, I look at them and say, okay, we should be replacing them at fairly regular intervals. And different vehicles run different ways, right? DPW dump trucks out every about 20 years. I don't know about fire equipment that much. I kind of do my research as I can. I listen to people, I listen to you. And I say, okay, you know what? Some of the equipment on there is the biggest issue. Sometimes I think you don't build the truck heavy enough, to be honest with you. When I see a crack in the truck, that's just poor manufacturing in my mind. But neither here nor there, right? The fact is I like to space things out a little bit because it makes more sense. The other thing is from an inspection and maintenance perspective, it probably works better. They're all the same. If I replaced all of them, all the inspections would come due at the same time and all the repairs would be at the same time.
you know, I think Chief Miller and Chief Milo are gonna have like a rotation, you know, going forward. Once we do have that, they will have that rotation in place.
Well,
I just want to, let me underscore that although those plans sound fantastic,
it's not.
they are
gonna work.
dependent upon funding. And so I'm sure at one point, the town had that structure where it was expected that we would replace vehicles at a regular interval. But when there is no funding available, those schedules start to, there start to have some variations in those schedules. So best laid plans would be that it would be replaced on regular intervals.
My guess is
Realistic.
One of the emergencies that probably overruled your truck was probably something called a water purification system,
Exactly.
$15 million.
And we got another one coming up. That's good, we could make the other one look cheap.
And the very real conversations about dump trucks in order to keep our roads open so that the safety vehicles can get through. So these, these conversations are the same on an annual basis.
So we're gonna take a motion.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we,
I think, but don't we want, why wouldn't we include, you're not including the study because you're hoping to get it from Mike?
I think we should, well, it doesn't matter to you guys, the funding source. So
Right.
if you want to go ahead and support it, your vote is to support the projects.
So this is my take on this. I'll throw it out there. I'd like to see this happen. If it didn't happen to all three, I at least want it to happen to the south. Why the south? Because we're piecemealing that thing to death and I'm tired of it. Either we're gonna fix it or we're gonna dump it, one or the other. Because we've already spent, I don't know how much money on that thing.
too much.
And we should have done this to begin with. And it's nothing on you, you weren't gonna hear. But the fact is that should have happened right then. You know, every time somebody comes in and says, oh, we want to build some rooms, oh, it's no big deal, it's just gonna be this. There's always something else. Like you said, the building goes back to the 1800s.
Right.
What was that, 51 or 47?
I wanna say in the 40s. It doesn't go back to the
No,
70s.
it's,
You were just making that up.
it's,
It'll also, one of the things that the chief and deputy are now focusing on also is when these projects are coming in.
Right.
Tap into them, which
Right.
we have
Yep,
not been
yes.
doing.
Right,
So we are looking at other
Yep.
potential avenues.
Yes.
okay. So,
I still have to make a motion that, we recommend the funding of the 2 engines, the 2 fire chiefs, the 2 fire
cars,
the trucks, the other trucks, pickup trucks. And, perhaps $100,000 for a feasibility study of the substation at this juncture in November. So we get that one rolling down the road. Because that's the one that needs the most work, and quite frankly, if it looks like we're gonna end up doing something with that. We're gonna go another season without putting the windows in,
yes.
turn the heat up, you know?
Well, actually, you can get somebody in there to do something to the windows, like. You put the plastic on the outside, by the way, guys. You don't put it on the inside.
well, we use the shrink wrap plastic, you
Yeah,
know.
I know.
I'll work with Tim on
Okay.
this to make sure that we can get it
Good.
sealed up. and-
The wind's probably not coming in from the windows, it's coming around this, where the trim is.
It is.
Correct. It could
Because
be,
nobody ever put
We
any
don't.
any foam in there
Yep.
or any insulation in there when they put those
and
windows.
Tim did go down and look at it, and his recommendation was to change the windows and for us to put it in for capital, so we did rely on
Yeah.
Tim. To look at the windows and the trim and everything, and this was recommendations
I
with
understand
him examining the building.
I just wanna figure out, should we even be putting money into that building or should we be doing something different? There's a big vacant lot right across the street.
We're not disagreeing with you.
Not disagreeing at
You
all.
know, and I'm not saying we should tear that building down. It's been around for a long time and done a lot of things, but I just wanna know what we're in for. Okay. Do I have a second on the motion?
I second.
Okay, so this, okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Oh, no,
No, I'm not
I
opposing.
didn't hear you.
Sorry.
I hear it.
Okay. Okay,
Just so I have this right for the minutes, we're only doing 100,000 of the 300,000 for the,
For the study, yeah, we get that study underway now.
I mean, if it's I've toured headquarters, several times. I mean, I assume you gentlemen have. but-
I've been in there, I've been in there.
Yeah, I mean, the guy, if you talk to Captain Provost, I mean, there was one time where they were trying to do the ventilation. And the ventilation actually just stopped. It didn't go anywhere. They were trying to do the day room, if I'm correct, and they were trying to do the work themselves, and for whatever reason, the HVAC system just was dead, like they couldn't go any further. And in the bunk rooms, I mean, I had better accommodations in World War II barracks in the service.
Can I ask for an amendment,
Sure.
if possible? And I don't know.
Throw it right out there, chief.
All right. Instead of just saying station one, could we just leave it as the stations with a
Yes.
focus on station one?
Yeah,
Maybe,
yeah.
maybe we could work with Mary, I don't know, what the
Yeah,
cost.
if you, frankly, if you're doing an inspection of the buildings to determine what needs to be done, you could probably do all three for 100.
I just don't want to limit to one. Can we
If you
just,
start getting into concepts, and stuff like that, then. it's
You
gonna
got that in architectural.
Well, you gotta do that. You gotta, this is not gonna be done by Tim or anybody like that. You're
Right.
gonna bring in
get
somebody.
outside person?
And frankly, one of the things I'm gonna wanna know, I think we're gonna wanna know, but I'm definitely, is the process by which you select whoever it is you select. And I don't know if it's gonna be you or if you're gonna, head that up and figure that out, but anytime we get a study committee like, or study done like that, we ought to be doing an RFP and selecting the best people.
I think we have to, Mary, right, by law? Okay.
Yeah,
I know I had to at the other place. I had to do it.
and we can get a group together and, make that kind of an ad hoc.
I'll motion for the amendment.
That's fine. Do I have a second on the amendment? Second. All opposed, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed.
Thank you very much.
Sometime, Chief, I'd like to sit down and go over the entire capital plan for the next 10 years or whatever. And I'd like to chat a little bit more about the organization of things because I'm not convinced on some things.
Sounds good. Let me know when.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Oh, no.
Just a quick note, two things.
Thanks for coming, guys. Bye, guys.
Board of Health is on at 7, so I know we've got plenty of time. for that. But Mary has something she has to read by 6.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
you want 2 cars?
I can talk fast.
And Pam already
Did
set
you just
everything
get
up.
2 cars, is that all we're doing?
2 cars and tasers, and I've got grant money potentially to offset most of the taser costs, and the taser cost can be broken out over 5 years.
Pam came and set that up, so all you have to do is. hit-
Yeah, I have a whole slideshow on the taser, we can run through it, it should be quick, but, and you gentlemen tell me, you wanna talk about cars while that's hot on the topic, cause I can do either
What do we got?
fluently.
Did
Can
you
I
ever
ask a
get
quick
your
question?
electric Vehicle, your,
Oh, Mary's actually.
you ever get your hybrid? We got 200.
Hang on.
How's it work?
Hang on, Mary's.
Mary?
That's so good. No problem.
Go ahead, Mary.
I just had a quick question because the chief just mentioned that you allocated the cost over a 5-year period. So the cost that I'm showing is 129,000. Are you saying it's 129,000 each
No,
year?
it's
for
it's 129,000 total.
Okay, thank
There's
you.
about
Okay.
9 options to pay for it, so. Capital was my last choice. I mean, this technically counts as a weapon. I don't wanna have to go to the floor of town meeting for this, but. This is an immediate need, which I can get to, whatever. But there are so many different ways to pay for them with this particular vendor. They'll do payment plans, they'll do 1 payment, they'll do 2 payments, we'll get to that, and I'll talk about how they kind of hold you
Yeah,
hostage
so-
also.
None of that would, I don't think we necessarily need to get creative with that. We should be okay. But my real quick question on that one before we even listen to it is this a collective bargaining issue?
No. No, it's issued equipment, and it's equipment they want and need. So there's no,
Do we need to do that bargaining just to make sure there's no issues, or are you good with?
they wanna know why they haven't had these for 20 years.
Yeah, I know.
There's no pushback from the union at all.
So
Yeah.
the
I mean, it's
process
better
is
for us.
Get them to sign off on it before we do it.
Oh, yeah, we certainly will, yeah, we can
Yeah.
do that, but anyway, do we want to see the quick presentation on tasers? I can sum it up in 30 seconds, or we can do this, should take 5 minutes. This is much fancier, there's a better word, but this is the pretty version.
Can we put on?
What was that? Yeah, no.
No,
I was gonna say, can we issue Beth a taser?
no,
Son.
come on.
I'm fine with your just explanation, chief. I don't know about anybody else.
Okay,
Go ahead, do it.
all right, here it is. There's our presentation, and where is the next slide? There we go. All right, needs analysis real quick. This basically, so Bellingham doesn't have tasers, electronic control weapons tasers, a name brand by the company Axon.
I'll get into what the device is after, but basically in 2023, this is expected equipment. If you go out there in society, anytime you see a police involved shooting or use of force, a lot of times you now hear, why didn't they tase him? Or taser doesn't always work. It's not always the best option, but it's a use of force option that is basically expected. It's expected by prospective employees that want to be a police officer. It's expected by our staff. It's expected by all our mutual aid partners, and it's expected by the public. Right now, Bellingham officers don't have on their person a de-escalation option or an escalation option between baton and firearm. So if there's a situation that could maybe be resolved without use of deadly force, their next option is a 30-inch metal stick. We saw how that ended in 1992 in Los Angeles, and how that the optics of using a baton on a person they look terrible. So that's our option. And God forbid somebody gets a baton away from a police officer, the only option again becomes deadly force. We don't have an intermediary option on the officer's person. Like I said, yeah, the escalation from a baton in an escalating situation becomes the firearm. The newest tasers that is what we have the quote for. The newest model has an effective range up to 45 feet. That's nearly double what they used to be. They used to be 21 feet. When they started out, it was 16 feet. A lot of studies, they reduce officer injuries, reduce suspect injuries. Batons can obviously, they can kill somebody, they can break arms, they can bruises, contusions, abrasions, etc. Where the taser, generally speaking, doesn't leave any lasting injuries other than the potential that the person falls, a ground level fall. Certainly there are people who have been tased who something worse has happened to them. Axon, who makes taser, says that in over 95% of those if the person's died post-mortem evaluations, they've all had high amounts of controlled substances in their system. So these are people who are on amphetamines, bath salts, cocaine, things like that. Hasn't happened in the Northeast, but has happened in the Southwest. Potentially reduce injury litigation. Again, if we hit somebody with a baton, we break their arm, we're talking orthopedic surgery, that sort of thing, versus somebody that has 5 to 10 seconds of pain.
Question, Chief.
Sure.
In the continuum of force, where would the take?
Oh, it's coming. I've got it for you. You'll see it. There's two versions of it. One is where pepper spray is, one is where the baton is. It is also a de-escalation option. Somebody's 40 feet away from me holding a piece of wood. Well, now I have something that works at that distance. I don't have to point a gun at them. And if they start coming towards me, I have something I can try potentially before they get to me. So we're not potentially putting an officer in a situation where they're forced to use deadly force, which is obviously our goal to avoid, if at all possible. Most mass agencies have adopted 10 years ago. The quote about batons is, the baton is lawful, but it looks awful. Here's the use of force continuum for the chief. So the blue on the far left here, what we see is compliant. That's your average person. You tell them they're going to jail and they say, okay, and they put their hands behind their back. The green, tactical, that is a person who just uses their words. They complain, they don't necessarily want to go to jail, and that's the person you just grab their arms and you just put them in handcuffs. Where the taser starts to come in, level 3, the yellow, active resistant, this is the person that pulls away. They may push you, they're not injuring anyone, they're just simply trying to flee, or they're trying not to be handcuffed. Compliance techniques, pepper spray can be used here, arm bars, wrist locks. These people, if they're running, could be tackled by an officer, that sort of thing. The taser has an option where you hold it against the person, and it's a pain compliance option where you could press it into somebody's side who's maybe laying on their arms and causes temporary pain in a very small location, makes them loosen their grip, that sort of thing. So that's the first level where a taser comes in. And this is the model that's taught to recruits in the police academy and all the officers in service. The next one is assaultive. This is the person that's physically combative with law enforcement, physically combative with other people. Maybe you show up and there's a fight going on, a pretty bad fist fight. This is the person that could be hit with a baton. They could also be sprayed with pepper spray. It's also the person that a taser could be deployed on. And then obviously the next level is somebody who is trying to kill someone or armed with a weapon, that sort of thing, lethal. Taser can also be used there. Often you'll see officers enter a situation and they'll call it lethal coverage. Somebody will have a firearm out providing coverage in case the taser doesn't work, but this is a situation where they often try to use a taser to not have to shoot someone.
So that's the current use of force model. That's where the taser comes in kind of right in the middle. These are some statistics going back to 2020 from the Bellingham PD. The dark red, these are involuntary mental health committals. So these are the people who did not want to go to the hospital but needed to because they were in some level of crisis. And we find that often with that, some level of force, some level of force ends up being used to restrain the people, get them in an ambulance. The kind of yellowy color, I don't like these colors, I should change them, but the yellowy color, those are people who are charged either with resisting arrest or assault and battery of a police officer each year. And the brown, those are documented use of force incidents. Now with the creation of the post-commission police certification standards, that's mandated, to be tracked and reported now. So Bellingham didn't track and report that in 20 or 21, so I can't give you those true stats. But if you look at 2022, 9 use of force incidents. Year to date, when this slide was created back at the end of July, we were at 10. So we're on track for 16 to 18 reportable use of force incidents this year. We're on track for somewhere over 40, 45 people involuntarily being committed in crisis. And then we're also on track for 8 to 10 people going to get charged with resisting arrest, assault, battery, police officer. So anywhere in these numbers is a situation where a taser may possibly have been needed, could have been deployed, could have resolved the situation differently. And just for a point of reference, in Massachusetts, there's 289 agencies approved by EOPS deploying tasers. And that was back in 2020. That number has grown to over 300. 1,255 uses of tasers on subjects by law enforcement in 2020. From 2019 to 2020, the number of incidents decreased by 9.5%, while the number of agencies and trained officers increased. So as more agencies got tasers, there were actually less uses of them. So as more officers were equipped with the tool, they actually got used less statewide. Norfolk County has full deployment with the exception of us. Metro Lec, which we're a part of, full deployment, that's 42 communities. Semlec, which is over 60 communities, full deployment minus us. Worcester County, there are only 2 towns, 2 very small towns with very small police departments not having tasers, and those are for political reasons. Bristol, Barnstable, Suffolk, Duke, Nantucket counties, all 100% deployment. Western Mass is about a 50-50 mix, but the 50% of the towns with maybe just a police chief in name for firearms licensing, coverage by the state police who deploy tasers. So that's the deployment in Mass. Here's a kind of pretty map of it. This was in 2020. You see us in the white. The only other one in Norfolk County in the white over here was Milton. Milton deployed 2 years ago. These towns in Plymouth County, I believe it's Plimpton and that's not Duxbury, I think it's Pembroke. They're deployed now. So basically from Norfolk County south is fully deployed, Suffolk County fully deployed, and Worcester County, of the 4 white towns, there's only 2 left that aren't fully deployed now. These were the incidents back in 2020, the areas where they were used. No, this did not work. I was trying to zoom in for you. So I was trying to, that was the growth. These were the deployments. I was trying to zoom in. We're right here in the white. Everyone around us had a variety of deployments. Woonsocket and the bordering towns of Rhode Island all deploy them also. So every town had uses of taser. So what's concerning with that is we have people obviously that pass through from those places. Our people go to those places. So we likely had incidents where a taser could have been used, where it would have potentially resolved the situation in a slightly safer manner. And training, this is a big, long, boring slide, but training's promulgated by CMR. When tasers first came around over 20 years ago, EOPS got involved. EOPS would have to approve us. We would send them our policy, which as we're going through and implementing policies in the police department, electronic control weapons and tasers are covered in the policy that I have in draft form to put out, and that policy has already been approved by EOPS. So officers have to be trained 6 hours annually as part of their annual in-service, 8 hours for a new user. And this is just kind of some of what they have to be trained on. And they're trained before these would be ever deployed. They have to demonstrate proficiency. They have to be able to take a couple of tests so they understand the use of the item, and also if they do use it on somebody, how to take care of that person afterwards and affect the arrest or get them in the ambulance, that sort of thing, any first aid that may be required. And finally, this more CMRs. This just outlines we have to have, it has to be in our use of force policy, which it is. There are updates, which there are, and the demonstrated proficiency, which that would be part of our policy. Drawbacks, because they're not perfect, they're not the end all be all. What we're finding in Massachusetts, this is based on the EOP study, they're 66 to 70% effective. The most common reason they're not effective is winter clothing. Because they fire these two little, basically fishing hook like barbs that have to make contact with skin. So clothing disconnect is the most common cause of failure. Here's the big drawback, the money one that I want to point out, because I learned this lesson in Foxborough. I'm not happy with this lesson, but unfortunately Axon is the only maker of a taser right now. There is no competition. They have a 5-year lifespan. During that 5 years, and I'm sure they'll last much longer than 5 years, but during the 5 years, Taser gives you $1 million liability policy. If God forbid somebody gets seriously hurt or dies and they file suit against the town, Taser would come in, they have their attorneys, they offer you that liability policy to take the burden off the town. At 5 years and a day, they tell you, well, we don't know what that thing might do. It's past end of life, forcing you to buy a new one. So we learned this in Foxborough. We bought new ones in 2018, and this past April, I had to buy new ones again because they said, you're out of warranty. We're not going to cover you. We don't know what those might do. And they put that in writing in an email, which, as we know, is public record. So it basically forces the hand to spend the money every 5 years. And the other drawback, and this is a training issue that they have found with some of the younger officers, is an over-reliance on a taser. As Chief, from your generation, from some of Jim's generation, the beginning of my generation, you went hands-on with a suspect. Now everything is distance, distance, distance. So it's another implement that creates distance. So there is that potential that when things aren't distant and when somebody gets close, people are over relying on a tool and they're not able to handle themselves hands-on. But this is nothing that we're going to be able to fix at a capital meeting. This is just, I'm pointing out, this is a potential long-term drawback, but it's a piece of equipment that everyone else deploys. So we get the costs. And just so capital understands, I am financially savvy. I fight with everyone about everything money-wise to get a better deal. When I bought 70 tasers in Foxborough, the price was $300,000. I got them down to $250,000. They started with me for $160,000 here for less than half, and I told them they were absolutely out of their minds and where they could put it. So I got them down to $130,000. It should be a little less. It should be $125,000, but this is the newest model. What we bought there was the model that they're going to go end of life on in a few years. So, and that includes everything. I applied for the burn justice grant, $50,000. So if approved, if capital finance and select board and town meeting approve this, we'll know in the next 4 to 5 weeks if we're getting the $50,000. So the price tag here might be $80,000. It might be $130,000. And if we get the first 50 and this fails on the floor of town meeting, or boards don't like the idea and deny it, with 50, we can deploy some tasers, but the way they're treated now, we can't just have people share them. So the people working always have them. We have to have them individually assigned. Otherwise, Taser won't honor the liability policy if they're not individually assigned. So the kiosk model is over. That's how we started many years ago. When we first got them, we had 6, and just the officers working took them. That's out the window because they know they can sell us more when they tell us we're not allowed to do that.
Question, does this price include the downloads and
Everything.
Okay.
This is so it has evidence.com, so it's cloud-based storage. It's all the training cartridges, batteries. There's no additional cost, holsters. There's no additional cost on the warranty. Everything's included for the 5 years. At the end of 5 years, I got to come see you again. We're going to do this all over again because they're going to threaten us with that warranty insurance issue.
The 5-year plan, what do they charge you for interest? When you pay
There's no, this is just their set price. If we broke it out and paid it over 5 years, it's just divide by 5.
Okay, that's good.
So, but there's also, if we got the grant money, we could pay 50 this year and we could kick the can down the road money wise and make payments. We could pay the rest next year. So there's a lot of options, which is good. The vendor works with us, but the vendor has you because there's no competition.
I know.
So at the end of 5 years, the big thing would be,
Got to start over again.
well, Or pick up an insurance.
Yeah, you're better off.
I think we'd run, if we used one, God forbid we use one and somebody got hurt, right? The reality is they fall, they break something, and they file suit. I don't know how we defend it in court, because Taser's answer to them is gonna be, those were end of life. Now, if we used a Taser 15 versus a Taser, is there any different outcome with that person? Probably not. But Taser's gonna distance themselves and say it, so that's the drawback, is they have us hostage to these 5-year plans.
That's a plain out license.
And I don't see there's no competitor, the only other competitor is a thing called Bola, which shoots some crazy it's a crazy gimmicky thing. I was looking at one today. And it's not the same thing, and they're the same money, so there's no competition right now, and I don't know that there will be, because they have all the patents. So how can you compete with something when they hold all the trademarks, all the patents? I don't know. But it's kind of one of those prices of doing business. What we did do at my previous agency was we ultimately worked into the expense side of our budget, and we just had it in there as a line item. And
I'm just sitting here thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
Because if you have the option of paying it over 5 years, and these have a life cycle of 5 years, ultimately what you're saying is increase your appropriation by the time we finish paying off.
But we have the budget wise, we have a lot of other needs, so that's why I looked at this as we just do this one time as capital, and that buys us 5 years to
On other
know,
things. Okay.
to figure out how to get it into our operating budget, or do we want to just once every 5 years make a big payment and not have to deal with it yearly? That's a conversation for different financial boards to figure out what the best way to pay for it is. I'm just advocating for the technology.
Yeah, we probably do like we did school computers, eventually build it into their budget every year, they replace.
Yeah, so these are why I needed to hear these conversations, so I can put together some financing recommendations for the boards.
Yep.
Great. Okay, excellent.
And then I think I have to unshare the screen so it can go back to just the normal situation here. There we go. Okay. That's the presentation on tasers. I can answer pretty much any questions. I've carried one for 20 years, so.
The other thing I have to be concerned with is if you shot a guy who's got a pacemaker.
So, and they advertise that in the training. You're not supposed to shoot pregnant people over 70, under 16, and somebody can be 71 years. You don't know excuse me, how old are you? It's not in the pacemaker. If they're not shirtless, how are you ever going to know they have one? However, in the training, and I didn't include the slide in the training, there's color-coded slides, and this area is all red. This is the upper chest, vital organs is basically an area where they're looking for you to target legs, the back, arms, extremities, things like that, and not the stomach and lower, not vital organs, not the groin, not the head. So that's part of their training, is to avoid targeting that area, just so that doesn't happen.
How often if you use your taser?
So I didn't have any deployments as a lieutenant. As a sergeant, I had several in our booking area, and as a police officer and a detective, it was something, especially with Gillette Stadium, a couple times a year. So Foxborough was doing, at one point, we were doing a dozen to 20 deployments a year. When I worked in Natick, we were doing 10 to 15 a year. And
10 to 15
deployments, total, agency-wide. And that's, it depends on who the person is, what their assignment is, who they're dealing with it. But in all those cases, those were 15 people that, if their taser was deployed on them, they could have been hit with a metal stick. Could have been caught on video, could have been, so that's all those people that didn't get hit with a police baton.
Yeah.
So
when you used your taser, what did you shoot?
it all depends on, a lot of times the option I talked about where it's pain compliance, that was the most common one. Somebody fighting not to go into handcuffs. Maybe they're pinned up against the car, they're on the ground. You use it basically distracts them. They whoa, and then so that's the most common one. The actual sending the probes, that much less common. That's a handful of times a year in the busier agencies. So
I have no questions. I'm gonna make a motion. Make a motion that we recommend the taser package as presented by the chief.
A second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Unanimous.
thank you. We'll get to cars.
Sure, why not?
Well, we know the nightmare with cars, basically. I'll tell you this, our maintenance budget. My maintenance budget applies to the same situation. With the increases in cars, the increase in maintenance has become obscene. Right now, we're running at about 36% of our budget year to date. 36% expenditure on the maintenance, where we should be around 20% based on where we are in the fiscal year. So we're over budget on vehicle maintenance. Hopefully that gets reined in, but we get hit with expensive, the prices of everything has gone through the roof maintenance wise. So part of that is having a good fleet improvement plan, fleet replacement plan, and Jim's done a good job with it here. His plan and what I think you guys have seen over the past number of years is the same plan I use in Foxborough, same plan almost every police fleet manager on the state's using. We're expecting, 5 years frontline use out of a marked police car, another 1 to 3 years behind that if it's saved as a spare car, a detail car, that sort of thing. In admin cars, we're looking at about 10 years. So basically what we're looking to do this year is the same thing as the fire department. We want to move our 2 cars down the line to the court officer and one of the detectives, and we have 10-year-old vehicles there. That being said, knowing how long it takes and knowing the delays, the 2 vehicles we put in for replacement, one is in worse shape than the other. One has lower mileage, but it's a 2013. It used to be an auxiliary police car. It was repainted. Court officer uses it. It's a Ford Taurus. The downside with it is, other than it's very old now, it's getting to be an 11 model years old. When they put the prisoner partition on those cars, there's about this much room for legs in the back seat. So it's probably the worst police car of the last 20 years to put a prisoner in, and that's just what he has to do with it to move people back and forth. So not only is it older, it's ineffective for what we would use it for, but it does have lower mileage. So that being said, I do have 2 detail cars that are pushing 100,000. They're 2 years newer. Depending where all this lands, if this all gets approved in November town meeting and we call the vendor and say, okay, we have money for 2 cars, and they say, well, maybe in February or March we get your car. By then, I might have to make a change here and keep that old Ford Taurus as a detail car and get rid of one of the detail cars because those have over 100,000. They have the engine that came out in 2012 and was discontinued in 2019 that is notorious for the water pump going, which costs us $3,000 to replace. So they're like ticking time bombs, but they're both running well right now, those higher mileage Explorers. So I have 4 vehicles on the bubble to replace. If you look at my long-term kind of capital plan here, I managed a fleet of 31 vehicles in Foxborough, and what we did was we tried to do 4 vehicles a year. When money wouldn't allow it, we would do 3. So we would do 3 vehicles for 2 years, then 4 vehicles the next year. I'm looking to do something like that here. 2 vehicles, then 3, then 2 for 2 years, then 3, so we don't run into these older issues. My vehicle's a 2017. It failed safety inspection, needed $2,000 of front end work in July, was falling apart. So it's just the nature of the beast. What we're dealing with is we know that the older stuff is becoming maintenance prone, and none of the offerings from Ford lately in the police world are showing any great durability. They're not the Crown Vic. They're not even the Caprice from the 90s. That these things are at the 7-year mark. They're starting to show their age. One of the older Tauruses, I don't know which one's what address, 421. That car, the front end feels just like my car. We got it to pass inspection, but if they actually look, I know what's coming: ball joints, tie rods, the whole front end. It's just. So it's tired. It's a 10-year-old car. It was Chief Daigle's car that he passed down the line. So it could get a few more years of life, and it's probably 2 years beyond where we should have kept it. But it doesn't get as much use because the detective drives it Monday through Friday. So
I got a couple of questions. Jim, you have the mileage sheet with your fleet?
I don't have it with us.
I'm gonna need it for finance committee. Okay. They used to do 100,000 miles, didn't care what the years on the car was.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't keep anything more than 10 years regardless of the mileage
Right.
either.
we got 2 that are 10, and then we have 2 over 100, and then the hours One of the Tauruses is a civilian package, so there's no hour meter. The one with lower mileage that's under 50,000 miles is 125,000 miles in hours. The two detail cars are both over 10,000 hours, so those are 350,000 mile cars. But they're still running and they're bringing in money.
Yes.
So there may be that option that one older Taurus, we may actually say, well, you know what, let's hang on to this and put. Some of this is gonna have to be a game time decision when the time actually comes, and could something go to another town department, or is something too far gone? The trade-in value on all these is junk. 1,500 to 2,000 is what they give us on trade-ins, so
What are we looking to get?
two.
To what?
That's the great mystery. So the way I budgeted this is I went middle of the road between what's offered in an administrative package SUV. High price is 47, low price is 40. So I basically tried to nail this right in the middle, and right in the middle is where most of them land in that 42,500, 43,000 range. We're gonna be somewhat dictated on what lands.
So you're looking to replace the two Tauruses
Mhm.
with two SUVs.
SUVs, trucks, something full-size, four-wheel drive, whatever we can get our hands on from the vendor. Money-wise, they're all the same money. There's no difference in cost. Equipment-wise, the upfit on an administrative car is basically the same. There's no cage, there's no computer, so some of that stuff that cost isn't there. The upfit's a lot less expensive. We don't need some of the things the fire department needs for oxygen, all that stuff.
Sure.
What was that?
So you said a car or a truck.
I have a, a hold, if you will, on every possible administrative package, police package thing that's made. Just because we don't know what's actually gonna land is kind of the issue.
What's the difference between the administrative package and the
Spot,
cruiser?
spotlight, the big one on the Ford is the spotlight, and the grill is different on the Ford. On the Chevy, it's the spotlight. It's something with the seats. I think they don't have the seat.
This is also the cage.
No. These are, when you buy the car, it's the police cars come. So Ford Explorer, for example, the police version, the police car comes with a spotlight, comes with a couple other things from the factory. The administrative version is still the police car. It's just they take away some of the out on the road police car. It's still,
It's the same suspension on either car?
yeah, same thing. There's no leather interior, no bells and whistles. These are basic fleet vehicles. I just gave you the quotes on basically the big threes offerings, the Dodge, the Ford, the Chevy. And what I'm trying to do is to avoid the Ford Explorer if possible, because down the road, we pass these to detectives, and currently our detectives have a fleet of what look like police cars. So ideally, something a little different, a Durango, a Tahoe, an F-150, something that in a couple of years when it gets past the detectives, they're not driving what looks obviously like a police car to do some of the things they do from time to time. Because that's the progression in the fleet. We try not to buy brand new cars for detectives. They don't put enough mileage on them. So my old job, we have a 2012 with 46,000 miles. How do we ever get rid of the thing? Because it goes out 2,000 miles a year. So we learned that we need somebody, command staff person that takes the thing home to drive it for 2 or 3 years, get some mileage, then get it to them when it's got 40, 50,000 miles. What we're trying to give to them both at 80,000. So we're already behind that 8 ball. But that's kind of the plan. So I'm trying to avoid Ford Explorer police cars. I'm trying to get some,
You
but
kind of said something that was interesting to me. You didn't want them driving something that looked like a police car.
detectives,
Detectives.
they could do surveillance. They might have to sit and watch that. So that's the problem, that they're all driving a Ford Taurus right now with tinted windows and rain guards and blue lights everywhere. They're driving police cars.
Yeah.
So, and what we're gonna give them are 2 more police cars. So I'm trying to, this is the kind of lesson I learned building the admin cars in my previous job, where knowing where they go after 4 to 5 years, let's get something that looks a little less police-like. It may still be a police car, but there's ways to do it so it doesn't look like everything else that's in the parking lot. So if they have to use it for something, it can trigger. They have 2 surveillance cars. They're 20+ years old. Those are on life support. So those didn't cost anything. Those were seizures. But at some point when those are gone,
I was gonna say, why don't you use some?
Yeah,
seed?
so my cruiser, my last job was a Jeep Grand Cherokee, bought off the state bid, cheaper than the fleet package Ford Explorer. The problem is, it's no longer cheaper, it's gotten more money. But, so for me, I'll do creative purchasing. I just don't know what that creative purchasing is, because I don't know what's actually gonna truly come available to us. If that's the challenge, but I can work within it. If I have to sub a little, take a little equipment out, reuse something, transfer something to stay within the budget, so be it. I can make it work.
So what are you looking at?
So I gave a couple of quotes there. There's I believe, I don't know, after all the taser stuff.
67.
Yeah, a budget for roughly 62. And quite honestly, there's probably about 2% overage built in there, just because I have in the back of my mind, knowing that I'm gonna probably end up running past July 1st, quite possibly before we actually pay the bill, and then I'm gonna get hit with a 10% increase. So now I've got to transfer equipment out of a 10-year-old car that I really don't want to do, or I've got to take some equipment off the upfit list to make the money work. So that's kind of where we're at, just knowing how the situation with fleet purchasing goes right now. It's terrible. And the 10% increase is insulting, and the off the lot fee is even. I don't want to go down that road.
One of the quotes you have is actually for Ford one that you use.
Same vehicle as the fire department, so that's just it's a plain Ford F-150, it's the responder, which is the police vehicle. Rubber floors, it's no frills, it's similar to an XL that you'd buy on the lot, but probably a lesser trim, because you have the rubber floors and the the infotainment centers, there's, the little tiny one, there's nothing fancy about it. But if that comes available, because supposedly they have an allocation, it's something that's workable, and it's something that's actually useful too, because it actually can hold 4 adults. I can't put 4 adults in uniform in my car, and that's a challenge.
Not to interrupt, but Mary has to go shortly. Wants to, she has any questions?
Yeah, Mary. Any question?
You're on mute, Mary.
We can't hear you.
Thank you. Sorry, I was making coffee, so I put it on mute. I'm good with I don't have any specific questions, but Tina, if you wouldn't mind just giving me a call tomorrow, and let me know any logistics or other issues that I need to be aware of.
Sure, yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, guys.
Like I gave you a quote for basically every fleet police vehicle that's there, minus the Dodge Ram 1500 in the police package. I tried to order 3 of those over 3 years in Foxborough, and every one got canceled. So I didn't even go down that road with the Dodge dealer, because it's a waste of time. I'd love one if you want to approve it. We can bump this to, if I get the same 80,000 for 2 command vehicles each that the fire department got, I will have some amazing looking stuff. So these are ultimately going to be command vehicles. And one of the things that I mentioned when we talk about a full-size SUV or a truck is we're generally would be the last people to get somewhere. Something bad happens, we're going to be probably the last ones showing up as the people in charge, but we're also the ones that might need to bring resources with us, move people around. We both drive a Ford Taurus sedan with a back seat that holds a kid. So I can't put 4 cops in a uniform with all their equipment in my car. It's not doable. Neither can Jim. So that's why we're looking to pass those down to detectives and go with something that kind of more fits the times. And neither of us have a pull-out draw system, any of the locking. We have no way to secure any bigger equipment that we should keep with us in our cars, other than just the trunk, where there's a push button inside that releases the trunk. So if somebody smashes the window of the car, pushes the button, whatever's in the trunk, they can get.
You got rifles on the cruises?
Not in our cruises,
No, no.
because the push button's live all the time. So,
Like on about a rack in the front.
well, we don't have a cage to mount the rack to. So
Oh,
all
that's
these,
on your marked vehicles. I'm talking
oh, the Mark, yeah, the Mark
Mark
vehicles they all have everything that they should have.
Rifles in view, or they locked up?
They're in the vault in the back.
Like I told Sergeant Marks, and I wanted to get you guys a striker.
Well, I did a quote for a Bearcat, and it was, but anyway, so, but that just, and and there's a lot of, when I do the upfit and the build and all that, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. I've been doing this for a long time. I speak fluently the language of all the equipment. A lot of police chiefs, administrators don't, and they just let the dealer tell them, here's what you should put in it, and you get these inflated quotes. So I'm building an admin car for probably 10% less than any. Let's put it this way, there's a nearby town, since we're in a public meeting, I don't wanna get, there's a nearby town that got a Ford Explorer in a hybrid model. It's a civilian hybrid model. They touted it as going green. It's the police chief's car. The sticker price on the car starts with a 6. So I'm not gonna get lured into, and that's before $15,000 or $20,000 of equipment. So I'm pretty savvy with this stuff. I sit on the FinCom in the community where I live, so there's no fluff here, there's no thrills. There's just, like I said, I built in a very small overage amount in case the only thing that comes available is that Dodge for a little more money, or if we roll past 7.1 and I gotta eat a 10% increase because the prices go up, or 8% increase on Plymouth County, or if I buy off the state, I think they can go up 7.5. It's all horrible, but it's what it is.
Motions for the admin cars, to approve 2 admin cars.
Yep.
So I'm gonna put a motion on the floor to give Chief Fitzgerald, Bellingham Police, 2 admin vehicles.
So
You already did the tasers.
2 M, so what are you gonna do with the mock cars? You must be getting up on miles on a couple of those.
So where we've saved this year is one of those hybrids that you asked about earlier was ordered years ago.
Yeah.
And it kind of fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
Sort of extra this year, and we're still down. We're down 8 people right now, 5 in the academy, and then 2 open positions and 1 recent retiree. So the marked cars, there's a lot of them.
Right now.
There's a lot of them that this is a good time to do 2 admin vehicles because the marked cars have had a 6-month rest. Now, wait till you see me next year and I've got 5 and potentially 8 new kids driving around like young kids do, putting a million miles on.
Two of them will have accidents, are gonna require.
Oh, 100%. We know it's coming. The newest car, whatever the newest thing is, we'll keep them away.
Always the newest car that I
Yeah.
get.
So marked cars were in a good situation this year. That's why I put 3 for next year though, because I know once you infuse 8 brand new cops, now some of the stuff that's in that 60 to 80,000 mile range, boom, it's gonna skyrocket. We're gonna have, probably 3 next year. So that will be ready or close to ready.
Those will be, police cars, not.
Regular police cars, and then it'll be, hopefully, we get another year out of the 2 detail cars we have now, and then we take the best of what we're trying to get rid of, move it to that, and move those along. And that's always,
What do you charge per day for cars?
oh my God, I don't even want to say it out loud,
I used to get $70 a day 16 years ago.
we charge $10 an hour over there,
That's good.
not here.
What do they charge
I
you?
don't know, what do we charge you? I mean, I don't even want to say it,
Peanuts, right?
no.
Say it.
Say it.
140 for 4 hours,
280 for
For
it,
the car.
280 for 8 hours.
Wow.
yeah.
Well, you did every.
So those 2 detail cars, they pay for themselves, but as long as we don't hit one of those water pumps, we hit one of those water pumps and it's crushing, so.
How much you get in your fund? Your revolving fund.
No, we're already using that for the car from May.
Yeah, part of it, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's still, what, 18,000 in there?
Well, $280 a day.
Yeah, because of the time I keep adding to it.
Yeah. And then, but then it's like the state job doesn't pay, and they needed one here and there, so there are some freebies, some give the DPW, they're out doing, so there's some giveaways with it, but when it's not a giveaway, it's
That's good, man.
lucrative, it is.
That's better than when a car rental agent gets for the car.
Okay, so I get a second on the motion.
I
Second.
have to go to Carnegie Free now.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose? So I will say that my preference would be not to have a pickup.
Okay.
You got 1 pickup, right?
Wait, there, not yet,
Still waiting for that?
still waiting.
That's the one from May, so
It's
due in September, but I think
It's-
probably October.
No, they can't get the back ordered parts for the outfit.
The hybrid's working good.
We're the only ones that have good luck with that. Mansfield's suing Ford. Westboro's trying to get rid of all theirs. The state,
What?
Jesus.
yeah, into heart attacks, mainly electrical.
Oh, really? Now you put them on charger?
The gas.
Yeah,
that-
they're not the plug, they just do their own. So far, so good. Fingers crossed on those, but no one else has good stories about them. It's, yeah, we're, I don't. Working with those.
I get your cardiac rehab.
Thanks.
I want it. Thank you.
Do you wanna adjourn the meeting before, so you have.
Yes,
Make a motion to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.